Hi guys, in this video I would like to talk about some really incredible things about Ludwig Wittgenstein that you may not have known. Okay, now this is intended for like real Wittgenstein fans. Okay, like if you watched all the YouTubes about him, you read some stuff about him, and you just wanna um, gonna get more and you know he's a real hero. Like, I mean, Wittgenstein, what an incredible man he was. What an incredible life he lived. It's just like I'm, a big fan of him. Like, he fascinates me as a man, fascinates me as a genius, definitely fascinates me as as one of the greatest analytic philosophers of all time. Okay, I really kind of regret it, feel really sad, kind of feel really bad about the fact that he did not leave us any audio. Like, we do not know how his voice sounded like. There is no lectures, no interviews, nothing. I mean, he died in 1951 when, you know recording technology most definitely did exist, but we just do not know what he sounded like, which is really unfortunate. Like, I would really love to, hear him lecture. I mean, it really must have been something, really intense, passionate, funny, really quite an experience. It would have been, I'm sure. So, let's talk about some things you probably never knew about Ludwig Wittgenstein. Uh, well, you probably know, like, if you watched the movie, that great 1991, or was it 92? When was it made? Whatever. That movie about Wittgenstein. You probably know that he visited Russia, but the interesting thing is that he did not just visit Russia, but he mastered the language. Okay, he learned the language in just a couple of months. I mean, just incredible. I mean, he was a man in his 40s, and he just came up with this idea that he wants to go to Russia. And, not only he did go to Russia, but he actually got really good at the language. He mastered the Russian language in just a few months, and it's a really difficult language. And one of his teachers, she was a Russian Jewish lady named Fanny Pascal. She said that she saw that he read Dostoevsky's Brothers Karamazov, which is an achievement in itself. I mean, the book is pretty huge. It's close to 1,000 pages, and he put word accent in every single word. Accent. How you pronounce a word. Do you pronounce record or record? So not only he could read it, but he knew how to pronounce every single word correctly. Now, that's pretty cool. He learned the language, and in addition to Russian, he at least most definitely he definitely knew English. He knew German, which was his first language, and he also knew Danish. He knew Norwegian, and I'm not certain about Greek and Latin, but he definitely knew some because he taught it. When he was a teacher, after his sort of short retirement, during which he was a teacher in the Alps. And by the way, he met this great mathematician Kolmogorov when he was in Russia. The next thing that that's really incredible is that he underwent a surgery late in life, And you might say, well, what's the big deal? I mean, everybody undergoes a surgery, but, as is usually the case with Wittgenstein, it was not, simply a surgery, but it was an insane surgery. Well, the thing is, it was a surgery without any anesthetic. I mean, can you imagine surviving, being cut up with a knife? Like, I mean, how would you feel about that? Well, that's what he voluntarily chose. He could have got anesthetic, but he said, no, I'm just gonna stay conscious and I will feel it the whole length of this procedure. I will consciously experience it. Well, why the hell would he do that? I mean, that is most definitely a painful experience, undergoing a surgery without anesthetic. Well, the thing is, one of his best friends, the young mathematician Ramsey, died after a surgery. And there was this other friend of his who also died from a surgery. And, Wittgenstein thought that, doctors cannot really be trusted. He thought that, had his friend Ramsey, stayed awake, instead of getting anesthesia, he would have survived. Wittgenstein really thought that, you should not trust doctors. And he had stones in his bladder, and, he chose to stay awake for the procedure. And for a couple hours, he was getting cut alive. They were cutting him up with a scalpel, stitching him up, and he saw the whole thing, and he consciously experienced absolute torture. I mean, just insane. Think about it. I mean, this is just Spartan endurance. And he was fine after. Next, I'd like to talk about his philosophy and his complicated views on logic, on mathematics, and this is something I find quite interesting. Well, Wittgenstein rejected so much of modern day analytic philosophy and mathematical logic. I'm talking about things like Tarski's theories. Now, as far as I know, Wittgenstein knew nothing about Tarski, but this type of philosophy of meta language, for instance, Tarski says that the sentence "snow is white" is true when and only when the snow is white. So like the sentence, X is the case, is true only when X is the case. This is called sort of meta linguistics, meta language. We sort of have this hierarchy, kind of like Bertrand Russell's theory of types. We don't just have one level of language, we have these kind of different levels. And Wittgenstein totally opposed it, totally rejected it. He just thought that's not possible. It's just intellectual fudgery. He really, we kind of think of him as this mainstream analytic philosopher, but that's absolutely not the case. Today's mathematical logic, most of analytic philosophy, they do not agree with Wittgenstein, surprisingly. The one guy who did take these views of Wittgenstein's seriously was G.E. Moore, one of his mentors and teachers, and one of his best friends for most of his life, just like Bertrand Russell. Actually, G.E. Moore thought that Wittgenstein was onto something, but Bertrand Russell did not, and people like Kurt Gödel and Alfred Tarski, they did not accept this view, and they kind of had theories which involved meta language. So he really was kind of a heretic. He was not nearly as mainstream as we kind of think him to be. He was closer to Schopenhauer than he thought, or than we think. He was really this kind of philosophical heretic. And today's analytic philosophy went in a totally different direction from what Wittgenstein thought was correct. Okay, and for this video, this will be the last one. And really surprisingly, Wittgenstein had a small and indirect impact on creating the computer. Modern day computer was partially, indirectly, to a small extent, influenced by Wittgenstein. And perhaps without him there would be no computer, who knows. The thing is, Alan Turing, the father of modern computers, was one of his students at Cambridge. And the two men, like, it was more than just student professor. It was deep intellectual connection that they had. It was kind of like Wittgenstein had this deep intellectual connection with Bertrand Russell, kind of like Plato had with Aristotle, kind of like Schelling had with Hegel, Turing had with Wittgenstein. I mean, they were very kindred in some sense. They were, they had so much in common. They were both homosexuals, both absolute geniuses, both were interested in big questions of mathematics and philosophy, and most importantly, they were both kind of ascetics and hermits almost. They lived this Spartan life. They just gave up possession, kind of physical things, and just focused on their kind of spiritual side of life. I mean, I know that's not quite right, but that's one way of putting it. And during World War II, Turing visited Wittgenstein's classes all the time, and they had these long conversations. And Wittgenstein helped Turing with breaking the Enigma code, and that led to other advances, and it made Turing think about computability, limits of computability, and it really all came from him visiting Wittgenstein's philosophy of mathematics class. I think that Wittgenstein was a big influence on Turing, and therefore he was a big influence on the modern computer.